Hey Jenny, good to see you guys. We'll just let everybody get logged in. Okay, for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm going to introduce my friend here in just a minute, but my name is Lauren Bourne, and I share encouragement for people trying to conceive and dealing with loss and miscarriage. And you guys have heard, my people who are on here a lot know that I say this often, but really there's a lot of people who are just in a season of waiting, like waiting for anything. That a lot of these scriptures that I share and testimonies and things are resonating with people who are just in a season of waiting, whether it's for a financial breakthrough or for a healing or for a restored relationship or whatever it is. So thanks for joining. Okay, I'm super excited. I've been waiting to meet this woman for like weeks and weeks. So I have a really good friend. Her name is Katie, and she's one of my closest friends. She's sitting in the room with us, but you can't see her right now. And she has a good friend, Elisa, and this is like the most amazing testimony. I'm so excited for you guys to hear it. I said this morning, but if you want to interact, comment. I'm gonna have to like lean forward to see your comments, but I want you to comment. Is it okay if people ask you questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so this family has, like, if you are going through a season of fertility struggles, if whatever you've gone through, I'm telling you, they've gone through it, and they've gone through it probably. I mean, you're just gonna have to listen to her story. But they've walked through infertility. Mm-hmm. Miscarriage, infant loss, I mean, you name it. And so I just want you to hear her story because I feel like it's going to give you so much hope. You aren't going to believe her perspective. It's going to fuel you up. And so I really just want to kind of start from the beginning, like wherever you want to start, but just kind of start sharing your story, share maybe with the infertility aspect of what it is, and we're just gonna sit here and have a conversation, and I'll try to keep my eye on the camera so that if you have questions that we can respond to them. And so for those of you who don't know, you can also tap your screen and give hearts. Let us know that you are enjoying what you're hearing, and that you're hearing us so that we can keep going.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm excited, just as excited as you are to meet you and to join in this journey with you. So my journey began over 15 years ago, and I was 22 years old. I had just gotten married, and we were struggling with getting pregnant. And my very first pregnancy was when I was 23 years old, and we miscarried that pregnancy at 8 weeks. And that was the very first pregnancy of 9 pregnancies that were miscarried 15 years ago. And so the journey of infertility, I went through specialists all over. At the time I was living in Southern California, I went to specialists in Ohio, specialists in New Hampshire, and I was diagnosed with everything from PCOS to my uterus was stopped, and I also was diagnosed at one point, I don't even remember the name of it, but they said that when my body got pregnant and attached to the uterus, that my body thought it was like cancer and it would go and kill the baby. And so at one point I was living with the reality of like, my body is killing these children. Mm-hmm. And so our journey has been 15 years to February was the very first miscarriage that we had. And so we have gone through it. We have been through the seasons of waiting and wanting and longing and going through, right now is the holidays. And for us, the holidays have always been the most difficult because there's that longing of wanting to have your house filled with the joy of children.
Yeah, we've had several questions on here, and actually that's what we're doing right now is a short series on like how to get into the holiday spirit and what that looks like, what that should look like. That doesn't have to look like the same as it does for every family. And so what do you have? How did you get through the holidays?
We have, we have our little tree up. I have a little pair of shoes that I bought years ago, and I wrote on the soles of the shoes, they're little antique shoes, and I wrote on the soles of it little verses. And, every holiday season I would, pray. And I felt like Hannah walking to the temple year after year and empty-handed. And that's the story I would read all the time. And I thought, if she can do it, and she can walk to the temple every year and honor her God and cry out to him and be vulnerable in all its brokenness. That's one thing I've learned about this miscarriage or this infertility journal. You need to be okay with the broken. A lot of times I think when you struggle with infertility, you're like, but I'm believing the Lord. And so you don't allow yourself to have those broken moments. And you know what? The Lord can handle your broken. He can handle your angry. He can handle your sad. And so every holiday season, we just, prayed, and we had our moments of crying, a lot of crying. We would do things like lighting candles for our babies, every year. The count got greater.
Grow.
And so it was difficult, but just believing in his faithfulness and that he's okay with our sad. And you know what? There was times that in the holidays I just didn't want to do anything. And you know what? You start learning too with your family and your friends who's willing to journey with you when when you tell them, I can't, I just don't want to do anything right now. I don't, I'm not into it right now.
Yeah, she was quoting, you need to be okay with the broken.
Yes.
But so good. Hey, Kara. Yeah, I love that. I feel like that's like a tweet waiting to go out right now. Because I think sometimes we try to push each other. Like, I'm very much a doer and an activator, so I'm like, you can do it. You can be like happy during the holidays. But it's like, if these holidays need to be sad for you, then just let yourself be sad.
Be okay.
Be okay.
It's, the Bible talks about seasons, and the Lord doesn't ask us to, be in a season of winter acting like it's summer. We need to be okay with being in the winter, and if that means that we're bundled up and we're closed up and don't want to be facing, that's okay. He can handle those moments. And the infertility journey, when our daughter passed away, our 9th pregnancy, and people used to tell us, just take it day at a time. And I always said, no, it's moment at a time. Yeah. And that's what infertility and miscarriage and infant loss is accepting each moment and saying, the Lord is okay with me being angry at this situation. Yeah. He's okay with me questioning and wondering. Yeah. He's okay with me being okay. Yeah. And he's okay in my moments of great faith. And that's enough to spur you on through the next moment, to the next moment. All you can do is take it one step at a time.
That's so good. Will you tell everyone a little bit about your daughter and just what happened? And
so our 9th pregnancy was, we found out we were pregnant in January of 2013. And we were so excited, and we were just believing, when you have a miscarriage and you find out that you're pregnant, it's every moment you're terrified because you remember what it was like to lose that baby. And so she was our 9th pregnancy, so you can imagine how scared I was. But I'm one of those people that I like to knock the devil right in the face. And so as soon as I found out I was pregnant, I announced it. I said, no, devil, you're not getting this one. And I announced, I said, we're expecting a baby in October of 2013. And my family was like, oh my gosh, do you want to share that? What if? And I said, no, you know what? I'm done being afraid. I'm done being afraid. And so we announced it. And in July, we found out that she was sick. We couldn't find out. We went as a family, happy as could be, to go find out the sex of the baby. And the doctor asked my parents to leave and, asked to speak with us. And he told us, your daughter has infelicil, which is her organs were growing outside of her body. And spina bifida, her spine wasn't closing. And of course, they encouraged us to terminate the pregnancy, and we're like, no. And
Did you stalk the doctor?
Wanted to, wanted to. I remember my husband told the doctor, he says, as long as she's fighting, we're fighting with her.
That is quite possibly the most offensive thing that
Absolutely.
I feel like could ever be told to a mother who's dealt with, to a mother who even hasn't dealt with infertility, but I will never forget when we were in the fertility doctor, and they said, well, you could just, we had like 5 mature follicles, and they were like, well, we'll just get you pregnant, and then it's called selective reduction. And that was such a small scale of what you experienced, but I remember even in that moment being like,
angry.
I might punch the doctor. Like, I actually might be arrested for like, something really bad. Yeah. And I didn't. I held it together, but I can only imagine like your feelings in that moment.
And I think mostly we were shocked, because here we were for the first time in, back then it was 13 years, we were pregnant, and I was actually growing a belly. this is our 9th pregnancy, and it was the first time I was so sick. I had horrible morning sickness. I was having to get IVs every 3 days because I was so dehydrated, blood drawn every single day. It was a miserable pregnancy, but I was so happy because I was pregnant and I was holding this baby, and we were bebopping along, and then we get hit with a 2x4 on the side of the face, and they tell us she's sick. And so we drove home. We were at an appointment in Fort Worth, and our maternal fetal specialist was there. And when we were driving home, none of us said anything. And when I live out in the country, and there's a lot of those bike races that happen out in the country, so they put random little signs every once in a while. So we're driving home, and right before we get home, there's this homemade sign, just one little sign in the middle of nowhere, and it has one word on it, and it says believe. And my husband turned around and he said, "We're going to believe despite." And I said, "Absolutely." And so we went on through the pregnancy, and at 25 weeks, our water broke. And we were rushed to Fort Worth, where I spent 10 weeks on bed rest in the hospital. And we live in Pilot Point, so we're about 60 miles from the hospital. So my husband was running the ranch, working full time, while I'm at the hospital baking this little girl and believing. And, there was a lot of people following our journey. And, so we go through the pregnancy, and at 35 weeks, she was born. And her organs were born. She was born with her organs outside of her body. But the bag had ruptured, and so they were everywhere. And so they took her for surgery immediately. And that night they said, if her kidneys don't start functioning, then she's not going to live. And by that morning, the next morning, we knew that she wasn't responding anymore. And they took us into a little room. She had a ton of machines that were just running everything for her. And they took us into a little room, and they said, they were pumping air, and they said, we can be here as long as you want. And we just prayed, and we thanked her. We thanked the Lord because her life was so perfect. She taught us to believe despite at every moment. And I shook my head, and the nurse disconnected the ventilator. And I remember she gasped, and she took her last breath. And I bowed my head, and I said, "Lord, I believe that your word says that if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, that we can speak to dry bones, and you will cause life to happen, to speak to those dry bones, and that life would be there. I believe." And I opened my eyes, and she was still gone. And I felt the Lord whisper in my spirit, and he said, "My ways are not your ways, and my thoughts are not your thoughts." And at that moment, I realized that her life was perfect. That, the Bible says that he knows our life from the end to the beginning. And it doesn't matter if your life is 25 hours or if it's 80 years. He knows your life, and it's perfect. And later that afternoon, we had her with us, and I was holding her, and it was just her body. And I asked the Lord, I said, "God, why couldn't you be glorified in her life? Why did she have to die?" And he tells me, "I will be glorified in your response." And it was at that moment that my husband and I made a decision that, we've been in this journey for so long. It had been 13 years. We had had 9 pregnancies, and we just knew that the Lord was saying, believe despite. Believe in these moments. And so that was our 9th pregnancy, and we named her Kriya, and Kriya in Spanish means believe. And so her name was perfect. She was, her life was perfect.
There was a comment that went up that just basically said your immediate response was amazing. Like, I don't remember exactly what she said because I was processing, but your immediate response was so commendable and inspiring.
I think people ask me that often. They're like, why and how? I mean, I would have been so mad and broken. But you know what? Keep in mind, we've been on this journey for 13 years. And before Kriya, we had believed 8 other pregnancies, 8 other moments, 8 other, some of our pregnancies went past the first trimester. So think my faith was so ingrained in knowing our God. You know, there's a lot of times that we recognize his hand and we know what he does for us, but it's getting to a place where you recognize his face in it. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I prayed and I opened my eyes and she was still gone, I could still see God's face and his heart for us, that he loved us enough to let us meet this little girl, and that she fought hard enough. For 10 weeks I got to know her in my womb, and you know, for those 10 weeks life stopped and it was just me and her, and I used to call my bed at the hospital my little nest, and he let me get to know her and get to share her story. And I really believe that without those moments I wouldn't have gotten to know her, and I also wouldn't appreciate the magnitude of this life that the Lord, he says, is so perfect, you know, because we knew she was going to be sick, and we had planned this life outside of a normal childhood, and we absolutely to this moment believe with all our heart that her life was perfect. And it was did we have moments of being angry? Yes. Yeah. Did we have moments of questioning and wondering? Absolutely. But above all else, we know our God, and we know that he is a good God. We know that he is a God who restores, and we know that he is a God who is faithful.
Yeah. And I feel like you couldn't know that unless you've experienced the relationship with the Lord. Because I keep hearing this, and I know the same God you know, even though I haven't walked through your situation. But I keep thinking, yeah, he is faithful. I keep thinking that, like, for people who don't know the Lord and who have never experienced the Lord, this has to be so confusing. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it's even confusing for us to wrap our mind around your story. Right. But I just feel like I'm supposed to say, like, if you're confused by it, like, seek the Lord, because until you have experienced him for yourself and you've heard his voice, and he spoke to you about your situation, because that's going to look different than her situation or mine, you won't understand. But you can understand. It does make sense. This isn't fake. Like, it makes sense when you've experienced the Lord.
When Kriya took her last breath, and the verse he gave me was Isaiah 55:8, and it said, "My ways are not your ways, and my thoughts are not your thoughts." And it's understanding that whatever his plan is for our life, the good, the bad, and the indifferent, we always want to accept. You know, some of us think this faith journey is accepting what we want and not accepting the difficult. But it's through those difficult that he's saying, I'm going to be true. I'm going to be faithful. You just keep following me. You know, I talk so much about Abraham, you know, that the Lord promised him this child, and then he finally has his child, and the Lord asked him, give him back to me. Imagine he was on a journey for 3 days walking up that mountain. Imagine what those 3 days were like for him to be saying, asking God and wondering, but wait, Lord, you gave me this promise. The Lord has given you a promise to have a child. He has said your womb will not remain barren. And you're in your 3 days right now, right? And if we look at the Bible, it says to him a day could be like 1,000 years. And so you're in this Abraham walking up the mountain, wondering, questioning, sad. Imagine his brokenness that he felt while his son is carrying the timber to sacrifice him. And he gets up there, and in his obedience, even to his son's obedience that lays on the altar, and lifts that knife, and the Lord sends that angel and says, stop. And he provides a sacrifice. That's who our God is. Yeah. Our God is faithful even in the 3 days that are difficult, when you feel like nothing's happening and you're so broken and so desperate. He says, just go, because when you get to the top, what does he call that place? I will provide. Yeah. He is our provider. Yeah.
That's so good. And he's a redeeming God too.
He is. Indeed.
I keep thinking about the pasture moment that you were telling me about earlier. Oh, yeah. Will you share a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that okay? Yeah. Share the pasture moment? The pasture moment?
Pasture, yeah. The pasture moment. So, we started, Kriya passed away 2 years ago, and last year we started an adoption journey. We felt like the Lord, we'd had 10 pregnancies, and we felt like the Lord was opening up those doors, which was so interesting because we had always been open to adoption, but, you know, we were like, we're not going to finance our house. It's so expensive, you know, I mean, really, on all honesty, the part that held us back was the monetary part of it, and we were just scared, how does it work, and not understanding. So we started this journey end of last year, and we're working with an agency in Austin, and the lady had told us from the agency, she said, we have 4 babies that are going to be due in October. And so our hearts were set on thinking we're going to get a baby by the end of the year. This Christmas, we're going to have a baby, and so we were so excited. The agency is in Austin. We were doing our home study with an agency in Dallas because they were closer. And I had been emailing the lady at the agency and, asking like, hey, did you get our applications? Did you get this? Did you get that? And I hadn't heard from her. And so days went by and I was kind of a little aggravated, and all of a sudden I get an email on a Wednesday and it says, I'm so sorry, we've been so busy replacing 3 babies in October.
None of those are going to your home, so.
Obviously. I was devastated. I literally packed my stuff up from work and drove home. I pulled up into the driveway, and we live on a small ranch, and I ran out into the pasture where all of our donkeys are. And I ran out, and I just fell to the ground and just was broken. I just cried out to God, and I said, how much more can I take? How much more can why can't I just have a moment that's easy? I hear so many people that this happens to them and that happens to them, and they're like, oh, I struggled with infertility for 2 months. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, yeah, for 2 months. Struggled. And I was just so broken and so desperate and crying out to God and just, begging and mad and sad and everything. And my neighbor came over and, thank God for godly women who put you on the hearts of others, that they just come and check in when they felt you. And she did, and she came and checked in, and I was just a mess. And I remember telling her, this is the despite moments. This is the moments when you have to have so much faith because you're so broken and you're believing this promise and it's not happening. It's not happening. There's, of all the people in the world, and why can't I just get a break? It's 15 years. Mm-hmm. So I'm going through this moments on Wednesday night where I'm falling apart, and she prays with me. We end this night, and I was so amazed because while I was here falling apart and having these moments and this questioning with God, and He's working. My eyes are set in Austin. We're waiting for this baby that's going to come from this agency in Austin, and the Lord's working in Dallas. And the agency that we had done our home study with said, we have this program called True Match, and if everything that they want matches what you want, then you move up to the head of the list. They weren't even an agency we were using.
So crazy.
And, talk about, you feel, that call came in on Thursday after I was so broken. The very next day.
Pasture meltdown.
Yeah. Yeah. And in that pasture meltdown, it was just so, I think part of this infertility struggle and wanting to have a family, that you just want that break.
Yeah.
You hear and you read, and all of us that are on Facebook, right? You see all your friends like, oh my gosh, we're pregnant again. Mm-hmm. Or, friends that who have struggled with miscarriage and, they finally have their baby,
mm-hmm. And even I've heard from a lot of people, not even just hearing of all the pregnancies, but watching the people mm-hmm. that got pregnant 15 years ago, their children are now in high school, and seeing the age of child you could have, and you haven't had one yet. That, to me, was when I started seeing that my friends had their 3rd baby, and I hadn't had one yet. Yeah. That was tough. So even when I had my first miscarriage, I put a journal together, and I started writing names of women who were struggling with infertility, and my name was the 3rd name on the list. And so for about 12 years, I kept that list, and it was about 4 pages long, and I would scratch their names out with the dates of the child that they would have. Well, my name, there's only 2 names that are not scratched out on that, mine and another friend's, who, again, we were in the struggle, in the journey, but every one of them had children. And that is such hope. Like, absolutely. I feel like that for women is such hope that like your time will come.
It will.
You have to wait and you have to believe despite, and you cannot give up. You just can't. If God has put a desire in your heart to have a family, you cannot give up that desire. Right. You can't. You just can't do it.
So the word that hits me is compelled. You know, people have asked, why did you try so many times, right?
They don't understand. That's so hard.
Yeah.
Why would you not give up at a certain point and protect yourself?
Right. And what it was is I was compelled. I knew that the Lord had given me a mother's heart and that he had given me a promise. My name is Elizabeth. It's Elizabeth, but it's Elizabeth in Spanish, and it means his covenant. And I knew that when I was born that the Lord had made a covenant with my parents, and that covenant was that he would be faithful in all things. And one of those things was that I had moments after third, fourth, fifth miscarriage where I said, Lord, okay, fine. If you don't want me to have kids, then take the desire away then. Yeah. You can do that. Take away the desire. And I would go through a season where I thought, oh, I'm fine not having kids. Oh, see, I have dogs, you know. And I went through that denial seasons. And but it never stopped, you know, where I just felt like, I know that the Lord has made me a mother. I know he is. And you know, I am a mother. When I die and go to heaven, I'll have 10 babies up there waiting. And the Lord will see that not a moment is lost.
And they're 10 babies who are now in perfect health.
Perfect.
Restored to their
Absolutely.
fullness.
No tears.
No tears.
They're whole.
Yeah, they're whole. And so, okay, so you get a call from this agency in Austin. Or in Dallas. And they say, well, we have this program and you've matched.
They move us to the head of the line, and so Thursday they say, so do you want us to present your book? When you're going through the adoption journey, you put together this book that basically is 24 pages. You pray and hope that tells enough of your life that they'll pick you. And so we said, we don't have a book. They're all in Austin, because we weren't even looking at this agency in Dallas. And so some friends of ours, Katie and Jonathan, had helped us put together a video. And so I said, can we use that video? And they edited it that night, and we sent it on Friday. Because they were going to be presenting it to the birth mother on Friday. And so they said, we'll let you know what she decides, you know, next week. And so we kind of put our bread on the water. And, you know, it's so mixed feelings now that I look at it from hindsight is, you know, I don't know if I had attached my faith to that video, or if I had said, well, whatever will be, will be. I don't even remember those moments, to be honest. I just know that Saturday I get the call, and she says,
and your husband was gone, right?
He was gone. He had gone hunting.
They didn't think they would get any call.
He went hunting. He asked me, he goes, should I stay? And I said, no. I said, they're not going to call us anyway till next week. And so he went hunting. And
at a certain point, you can't continue to put your life on hold, right?
No.
So a lot of people struggle with that. Like at a certain point, you put your life on hold through each miscarriage, through each fertility procedure, through each adoption, whatever. And then at a certain point, you're like, well, we can't put 15 more years on hold. So
and that's so good to say.
You have to go hunting because...
That's so good to say, because I know part of, through our infertility and miscarriage journey, is there was so many moments where I didn't do things. Like, I used to ride horses, and I stopped riding horses because I was either trying to get pregnant, so I was preparing my body and didn't want to mess things up, or I was pregnant, or I was getting over a pregnancy. I've had 15 years of that, and there's so many things that, looking back now, I feel like I wish I wouldn't have waited to do things, because I was so planning, you know. And there's a huge, you know, there's this faith that you want to do things out of faith, but then there's also, you know what, have faith enough to continue living, to continue believing, and to continue doing things. If God's calling you to doing that, or it's something that you're passionate about, do it.
It's healthy for your mind and your body.
It is. It is.
Okay, I'm sorry. I keep interrupting you.
No, it's okay.
Things and I'm like, yes.
No, I appreciate it. But so Saturday I get the call, and I'm a planner. I was joking with Lauren because I had my speeches planned of when they called me, if they said no or if they said yes, what my speeches were going to be when they called. And we were thinking our call was going to come the next week. And so she calls me and she says, hi, this is Mary from the adoption agency. I said, oh, yes. And she says, well, congratulations. And I just ugly cried things. I just forgot my speech went out the window, and I was like, ah! Thank you. That's all I could say. I didn't know what else to say. And then finally, when I composed myself enough, I said, no, what am I supposed to say? You know?
Okay, so were you able to get a hold of your husband
Yes.
that weekend?
Well, what I did is I waited.
Okay.
And we had, so let me rewind a little bit. I want to encourage you in your journey to not be afraid to punch the devil in the face, because when our daughter passed away, we had a full nursery ready to go, and she passed away, and we closed the doors in that nursery for about a year. We just didn't go in there. It was too painful. And after a year and going through the grief process, you know, we took everything apart and we put it up in the attic. Well, when we started this adoption journey, one point I told Tara, I said, I feel like the Lord's saying, get this room ready. And he says, are you sure? And I said, yeah. I said, I do. I said, I do. I feel like the Lord. So we repainted the room. We started getting things and putting them in place. And every time I would have those moments where I was like so sad, or another friend would have a baby, or another this and that, where I just felt so defeated and so broken. There was one time I told Terry, he got home, and I said, Lord, I'm going to go to Babies R Us and buy a car seat. And he's like, what? And I said, yeah. I said, the devil's trying to get at me.
Yes.
I said, he's not getting at me.
I love
And so we went and bought a car seat, and everyone said, you know, those expire like after a year. What if this? What if, you know? And I'm like, I don't care. We're going to go. We spent 3 hours looking at car seats, and we went and bought a car seat. No promise of a child, no pregnancy, nothing. Crazy? Yes. But you know what? Radical? Absolutely. And
major act of faith. And we've talked
Absolutely.
about that on here so many times. Like, I'm always encouraging them that your act of faith is going to look different than hers. We prepared a room as well before we ever conceived our first child, and we felt like we were supposed to do that. Retail therapy. That's my husband. I like to shop. We prepared a room too, and I felt like you said you were crazy, and I felt crazy, and I was like almost embarrassed to open the door and to tell anyone that we did that, because we didn't have a baby, and there's no baby in sight. But for us, like, I really feel like our obedience, and I feel like your obedience almost like paved the way for your breakthrough.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
I say all of that to say that we had purchased like baby clothes and things like that. And we painted our room neutral because we didn't know if we were going to get a boy or girl. And we, you know, honestly, we thought it might be a couple years or whatever. And so when they called me and said, you know, she said yes, when he got home, I had decorated the room, and we knew it was going to be a little girl. And I got out Kriya's old clothes that we had a bunch of brand new stuff. I mean, when we put that room together, we were literally unwrapping gifts that people had given us that from 2 years ago when our daughter had passed away. And so I pulled out some onesies, little pink stuff, and I set it out on the bed, and I got balloons. So when he got home, I said, come here, let me show you something. And I took him in the nursery, and he's like, yeah. And he looks at me and he says, wait, what happened? And I said, she said yes, and it's a little girl, and she's going to be here next month. I mean, talk about radical too, right? We're here 15 years waiting, and in 6 weeks we go from you got a yes to she's here, she's born. Yeah. Right here.
This is so beautiful, you guys. I'm like crying. This is ridiculous. I'm just like waterworks.
So this is Kara Beth.
This is Kara Beth.
Yeah.
Isn't she beautiful? Look at her hair.
She has tons of hair. Her name means beloved promise.
Beloved promise.
Yeah. So in 6 weeks, the Lord just gave us an amazing birth mother, an amazing journey, an adoption journey. And she was born, she'll be 4 weeks on Sunday. And we were there at the delivery room, and just got to...
Her name. I know, that's my friend Kara.
Oh, yeah! Kara!
Oh, I know. Kara. You guys, if you're losing the connection, watch the replay, and you can actually fast forward on the replay. So fast forward back so you can rewatch this part of whatever you missed. And she's beautiful. And so they went basically 6 weeks in October, this last October, like a month ago. They didn't even know that they would have a baby. No. And now they have, the link to her video. because you have it's
Yeah, we have a video. You can find us on Facebook at Believe Despite, and that's where I journal a lot. I have a website, elisarumbo.org. It's down right now, but you can. I have a YouTube channel under Elisa Rumbo.
Okay, so what I'll do is I will for everyone I will post up a link to all of her social media on iamfruitful.org. So I'll post that up on the blog, so you could just go to iamfruitful.org and then connect with her, because she blogs and you probably write a lot more than I do.
she's just so.
I know this is my first video.
She's a natural. You know what's amazing about this? Talk about the Lord restoring. When I had my second miscarriage, Darlene Check had had a miscarriage. She's the worship leader at Hillsong.
Yeah.
And she said that when she miscarried and she got out of the hospital, that she told her husband, take me to the church. And she went to the church, and she went up before the altar and bowed her knees before the altar. And she said, Lord, you showed me that I would be holding a child on this platform, and I'm going to believe you for your promise. And when I heard her tell that story, I was so compelled, and I said, I used to be a youth pastor, and I remember calling to the Lord through several of these miscarriages, Lord, you said I would be holding a child, sharing your name, sharing your word. And this right now is a moment that the Lord gave me 12 or 13 years ago, that he said, you will be holding your child and you will be talking about my goodness and my faithfulness. And it took us 15 years, but through technology, it may not be a stage. But this is a redeeming moment where the Lord says, 7 times I will give you what the enemy stole.
Yeah.
And all those years that felt so empty. And I'm just looking at this, and it reminds me of that.
Amen. My husband said amen. My husband asked if you could talk about how you feel now, like after all of that. What do you feel now? Do you feel relief or?
No, I still have that word. There's 2 words that I feel like the Lord's just really sharing with me, and one of them is compelled, and the other one is intentional. I feel like, when you pray and believe for something for so long, you can say, oh yeah, see what the Lord has done, and let it be that. But you know what? These moments and this looking into this beautiful little girl and living this journey, I know. I'm going to give you to your Thea Katie. Okay. Go. I know that that the Lord, going through all of the hard times, right? Now that I'm the girl that has the baby, right? I feel like the Lord's like, don't forget all the ones that are still waiting. Don't forget to keep sharing, to keep talking through the hard, keep talking through the angry, keep talking through because I remember so many times that some of my dear friends, that they struggled with miscarriage, they struggled with infertility, and then when they had their baby, I was so happy for them, but I was so sad for me.
Yes. And that's okay.
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like so many people feel so guilty when they find out the 12th person in their life is pregnant. But you're not sad for that. I mean, it's not even a jealous issue. It's just you're sad for you because it's not you.
Yeah. And now okay. I'm so excited, and I'm, I just want to share her with the world. But more than that, I want to share his faithfulness. And that's the place that I'm at today, is that everything that I do, and I even told her birth mother that. I said, the day before she was born, I said, tomorrow you're going to give birth to a new life to us. And part of that is that Kara, and that's why we named her Kara Beth, beloved promise, because we want her to live as she has been named. Yeah. And every single moment of her life, she's going to know the journey. And, one of the hardest parts of infertility, 15 years that I remember, especially through the holidays, that I would cry and I would say, God, I don't want to live this life and not have a legacy. That when I'm gone, that's it. I'm gone. And I'll be a memory or a thought. I wanted to have something that would go beyond me and be greater And that's what my hope and my desire is for this little girl, that she's going to know her purpose. She's going to know that the Lord has called her from the moment she was conceived, that she would make her way to Dallas, Texas, to go to the Rumbo Ranch and grow up living this life. And so the moments that right now is that I am so grateful. You know, when she was born, they put her on my chest the moment she was born, and all I could say was, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. Because I also understand that there's so many that are still out there struggling.
Yeah.
But because I know how faithful he is for 15 years, that we believed.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful, and I believe even greater. I attach my faith. Now I have women who have been in the infertility struggle, and I tell them all the time, I attach my faith with yours.
Yes, that's so powerful. And I really believe, like, one of the reasons I wanted you to share is I really so strongly believe that testimony is so powerful. And my husband wanted me to look up this quote earlier, and it's on my phone, so I can't get to it. But he talks about how testimony and hearing testimony creates an appetite for more of the things of the Spirit, and an appetite for miracles, and that appetite produces miracles. Like, that gives way for miracles. And so I want to encourage you as you're listening to this story. I'm so sorry, I cannot read these comments from this far away. Who is at her? Okay, I'll ask her that in just a second. So if you're listening, just she's attaching her faith. I'm attaching my faith. Absolutely. We're believing for you, even if you're a world away, a state away. We're believing with you, and it's crazy that we can do this.
I know.
And it's not a stage, and you don't have to be in Dallas or wherever to hear this, but that we're believing with you. And before I forget to tell you, I just felt very strongly when you were talking that your daughter has such an important, I mean, you know this, but like, she has such an important purpose, and like such an important destiny. And there are so many examples in the Bible, and you know this too, but of couples who struggle with fertility, that their children were great. They didn't have average Joe. No. And there's probably not a Joe in the Bible. They didn't have average Joseph. They had important people. And I just really believe that she has such an important call on her life, that the enemy worked for 15 years to prevent her from being with you. Like, he did not want her with you specifically. And now she's with you, and he lost. Like, he lost the battle.
Absolutely.
And that's another thing, like, I dealt with every miscarriage was, even though they were gone, the enemy didn't have them.
No, he didn't.
They don't go to hell. They go to heaven. And that sounds really harsh, but they go to heaven. And so he, after they're gone, the miracle is that he can't touch them anymore.
Absolutely.
He can't touch Kriya ever again.
No.
And
She's whole.
all he can do is mess with your mind. So really, his power is nowhere. Except your thoughts. So I wanted to say that, and then I wanted to ask you another question. Okay, I'm going to ask you this, and I don't know if it's too fresh, or I'm just going to ask you. I feel like you've been really open, but I feel like, I'm trying to figure out how to word this. I feel like a lot of women are wondering this. So you go through wanting your own baby for so long, and I know that even that phrase may turn you off. I don't know how to word it. She's your own baby, but you know what I mean. Biological baby. And so how did you get to the place where you were okay and even embraced?
It's a wonderful question.
Bringing another child, because I know for me, I went through so many times where I was like, can I do that? Can I let myself go to that place? Should we do that? And I feel like so many women think like, absolutely, I don't think I could do that. So, so if you're willing to answer that question.
No, I love it. So let me rewind a little bit. People ask me all the time, why didn't you quit? Right? I would have quit after the third pregnancy. There's women who go through one miscarriage and they are just lost. They can't get back. And, if you think about it, 10 pregnancies, 15 years, that's a lot, mentally, emotionally,
and
everything.
Physically.
Physically, everything. Why didn't I quit? First of all, because I believe that the Lord told me. And in those moments when I thought that I wanted to quit, it was those understanding that my child had a purpose and it was beyond me. So I couldn't quit because of me. Or I could quit because of me, all I wanted, but I could not quit because of the destiny this child had.
So you turned the focus from what you wanted to what
the Lord was going to do.
To someone else,
Absolutely.
to your child, which is more important than yourself.
And to what I believe that the Lord said. I believe that the Lord said that he would fulfill a promise. And, you know, I am 2 times what my mom is, you know, and she's a warrior. She's a prayer warrior, woman of faith. And I believe our daughter's going to be 2 times, 7 times, 10 times, whatever that we are. And so when we had Kriya, it was our 9th pregnancy, and then we had a miscarriage on our 10th pregnancy in January. I shared a little bit earlier with you that for the first time in my life, I'm a life lover. I love life. I'm an encourager. I have a faith gift, you know, like I just believe the best in all things. But for the first time in my life after that 10th pregnancy, it was in January. Our Kriya had passed away in September, and that January we got pregnant and miscarried. I laid in my bed, and it was the first time in my whole life that I literally was willing myself not to breathe. I could feel it right now, just where I was like telling my heart to stop beating. And not that I would ever try to hurt myself, but it was that moment of feeling like I was done.
Yeah, defeated.
I was done. I was like, Lord, I have nothing else. You've asked too much. It's been too long. I've given you everything. I've been obedient. I've followed you. I've done what you've asked. I have nothing more. Just let me rest. Let me go and be with my babies. And in January, when I felt that, it was like, I'm like a bear, you know, I go into my cave and I lick my wounds and I don't come out until I'm ready to fight. And it wasn't till about April when I came out and I was like, no, you know what? I'm done. I'm done with believing that it has to be my way. I'm done with believing that the idea of me having a legacy on this earth has to come from my womb. Lord, whatever it is that you desire, I will open myself, just like Mary said that night when the angel came to her. As you say, so be it. And then it was like the Lord speaks to me in threes. Then one friend called me and we were having just a basic conversation. She says, gosh, you know, why don't you look at adoption? You know, and she started talking to me about it. And then another friend of mine said, you know, money should never be the reason why. If the Lord puts that on your heart, the Lord will provide. And it was like this series of things that the Lord just kind of started opening up. My husband came to me and said, you know what? Why don't we just start looking at adoption? And then the Lord brought an opportunity in front of us for fostering. And we thought, oh gosh, we could never foster. There's no way. And the Lord brought that opportunity and it got us to take that first step. Now, we knew we didn't want to foster, but I think fostering is a calling. And we knew we didn't have that calling. But it caused us to move our leg and take that first step. And then once that first step was taken, it was like, this isn't so scary. And we took the second step. And then the Lord brought another opportunity. So our adoption journey was over a year. And there was, 4 or 5 other little kids that came across our journey that we thought was candidates. And then the Lord moved them out. And here's the crazy thing. All of them were boys. Every single one of them were boys.
It's interesting.
Yet the Lord says, I have a little girl that's been conceived and she's going to come to you. And so it was understanding that after we were done, when I was done, being me saying, but Lord, you said, and thinking it was going to be a certain way. I always wanted pregnancy. I wanted to experience pregnancy. I wanted the belly. I wanted the morning sickness. I wanted to feel her. And he gave me all that. He fulfilled his promise. In fact, at Kriya's memorial service, I said that. I said, the Lord did what he said he would do. And he made me a mother. And even though she was only here for 25 hours, he made me a mother. He fulfilled his promise. And I think when we finally stepped into that adoption journey was because we felt like the Lord had said, rest. It's in my hands now. And I don't know if there's any one way that you can know for sure, like, when is it time to stop trying? I just knew for me, it was that moment that I was just done. I felt like, I'm done.
And you were at peace with being done.
Yeah.
And so then at a certain point, it went from just being done with that to having hope for the adoption.
Yeah.
I mean, surely that came slowly, but to where it wasn't just like, well, maybe we could do this. And it turned into like, oh, I'm excited about this.
Well, and then it was this, it went from an idea to hope. And then once we started moving more into the adoption process, that hope turned into faith. And that once that faith latched on, I was done there too. I was like, we're getting a baby. We are getting a baby. The Lord's going to bring in the money. We're getting a baby. Yeah. And I didn't know when. I didn't think it was going to happen in 6 weeks. I'm grateful for it.
I'm so glad for you that it happened so I know it wasn't really, because it was really like a year, but from the time you got that call, because I mean, what a great redemption.
Oh my gosh.
Of all the lost time.
Listen, the Lord honored even that, because we think about if she had called us, or if the agency had said, we have a baby that'll be due in 9 months. I don't know if I could have done 9 months of waiting, hoping. I don't know if my faith would have been, I don't know if I would have had enough gas.
And even worrying through for that pregnancy.
Yeah, absolutely. Because every step.
9 miscarriages and a loss, you go there.
Yeah, you do. And even just adoption, it's not done until it's done. And so, like, the Lord knew just how much gas we had. And he's like, all right, here you go. 6 weeks, bada bing, bada boom, she's here. And it was a hard 6 weeks. It was hard. It was hard. But it was, those marathon runners that they say, that last few stretch, whatever it is, that your legs are just tired, your arms are tired, and then you get to a point where you can't feel it anymore and they're just going on automatic. That's kind of how we felt. Yeah, like the Lord gave us enough gas and our faith was attached to it, where it was like, let's go.
And you look back and you're like, how did we get to
Oh my gosh.
It's like when you're driving somewhere and then you get there and you're like, I don't remember.
Yeah, driving there. You're just kind of in
so horrible.
zombie
Does
mode.
that not happen to you, Katie? Okay. You looked at me like, what?
No.
You get places and don't know how you... Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Absolutely.
Like, I feel like you have so many great things to share that we could we could probably just make this a weekly group and just come out here and share. But I really appreciate you sharing, because I know that you've obviously received healing and you're dealing with stuff. Like, you're obviously not a shove it under the covers kind of person. But at the same time, it's still really hard to talk about.
It is.
Obviously, we're sitting here crying together.
Well, and I just shared a video, I think this morning or yesterday, that it says miscarriage. Let's start talking about it. Because I was at church yesterday and I was walking through the lobby and there was these two women that were talking. And one of them says, oh, wasn't so-and-so pregnant? And the other lady's like, oh yeah, but she had a miscarriage.
And they whispered.
And it was like whispered, and I thought, gosh, and I'm like, that devil is a liar, because he makes you feel, when you are struggling with infertility and when you're struggling with miscarriage, he makes you feel shame.
Yes.
He makes you feel alone. He makes you feel like, there's no one else on the earth. And, one thing I've learned about sharing, and this is kind of my punching the devil in the face too, is I've always shared about infertility, about miscarriage for years and years. I've been talking about it. And people are like, why do you share so much, so intimately? And I said, because I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one that's struggling. And the devil's a liar, because he makes you feel like, don't share, don't talk to people. And I believe that the Lord's opening a season, even just us meeting and Katie introducing us, that he's opening this season of women locking arms together and saying, no matter where you are in your journey, right? I was telling Katie, and I think I was telling you this a little bit ago, we went from infertility to miscarriage to infant loss and now adoption. We've been the circle for 15 years. And never would I have imagined in my life that God would start opening doors and saying, now start talking, and now really talking. And I think it's so important for doing things like this and letting women know you are not alone. Yeah. And more than that, our God is faithful, faithful, faithful. And there's a lot of times when I was in my journey that I would feel like, but it doesn't happen for me. It happens for everybody else. Right. But you know what? The Lord knows your name. He knows your life from the end to the beginning. He knows every hair on your head. And if he has told you and spoken something to you and he has not withdrawn that desire to be a mother, then don't quit.
That's so good.
Don't quit.
Yes.
Because the Lord has given you that. And until he removes that desire from you and says, nope, we're moving in another direction, then don't quit.
Yeah.
Keep believing God. No matter the moments.
Yeah.
Despite what believe despite is. Despite the agony of it. Because it's so intimate.
Yeah, it is.
So hard.
And I think that's one reason people don't talk about it, because it's private.
Yeah.
For me, it's not private.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, it is private. And for those who aren't private about it, I think that's what makes it hard. It's like, well, is it okay to share that? And can I be sad? Like, why isn't anyone bringing me a meal right now?
Yeah.
I just lost a baby.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that, it's really hard.
Miscarriage is one of those things, until you go through it, you don't understand it.
Yeah.
I had several friends who would say, they would make the comments of, well, you were only 4 weeks. You were only 6 weeks. Or, they kind of like belittle the fact that you saw 2 lines and you started dreaming of a date that your baby was going to be here. And that is real.
And you didn't just lose the child, you also lose the hope, and you lose the future that you've already decided in your mind is happening for that baby. Yeah. Their high school graduation, their spouse, your grandchildren, it's gone. It's not just the baby.
And of you being mom.
Right.
And, but then when they went through miscarriage, then they would tell me, they're like, I never understood. I never could. Right. So if you have friends that don't understand, be gracious to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And be grateful that they're not part of this club.
Exactly. We don't wish
it's
that
a
on
club
anyone.
that nobody wants to be a part of, right? And I said that when Kriya passed away. I said, for 15 years I've been a part of this club that nobody wants to be in, yet here we are.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's okay, because it's part of our journey. Our children are whole and in heaven. So some of you mamas need to hear that. Your baby is not lost. Your baby's whole and in heaven. I have named every single one of my babies.
I was going to ask you that earlier, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I knew.
A lot of people have asked that on here about, do you name your babies? We've named all of ours. I think it's really important. It gives their life value and purpose for you. It's not necessarily for them. It's for us. And I think it's really important to name your babies.
It is, absolutely. And you know what? The Bible says he knows our life from the end to the beginning. So you know what? He knows that this child is a boy or a girl. And I just knew, I had feelings that I was like, oh, that was a boy, that was a girl. And I named every single one of them, because when I see them in heaven, I'll have to call them by their name, because there'll be 10 of them. So we'll I think it's so important, and I think it's also good as part of the grief process. We've learned a lot about the grief process. It's a whole other subject.
It's a whole nother one, and it could be a whole nother hour-long Periscope. So good. I'm trying to think if there's any. I mean, yes, there's a bunch of things that I still want to say.
We'll have to
and
do
ask
more.
We'll have to do another one, but this was super long, but I feel like this is someone left a comment a minute ago. I didn't want to interrupt you, and she said she loves your story, and that she's been struggling with this for 25 years, to try to conceive for 25 years. I don't know if you're still on here, but we just we're here for you virtually, if that means anything for you. And I pray for you guys every day, and just that the Lord would reveal himself to you and be there for you, prove his faithfulness, and whatever that looks like in your life. And when she was talking about just not giving up until you feel like the Lord's removed that desire, I hope you're still on here. I didn't even catch your name because I can't read it, but I feel like that was for you. Like when she was saying that, I felt like that was for you, that you don't quit until the Lord has removed that desire. And I feel very strongly that you will know, like without a shadow of a doubt. It won't be like, well, how do I know when that, like, well, if you're not sure, then he hasn't removed that desire.
Absolutely.
And so just continue trusting the Lord. And this is a great segue to end, that her, Nectar, is that your name? Oh, you're who put that up. Okay. You won't. Okay, good. I'm so glad you're still on here and that you were able to hear that. Don't give up. I would love to hear more of your story. I share this every time, but you can email me, lauren@iamfruitful.org. I would love to connect with you there on a more personal level and just be able to pray specifics over your situation. Absolutely. I can share it with her as well.
Absolutely. And you know what? That be listening.
Trusting God.
Absolutely. Be listening to God's voice because, and you know what? Sometimes those whispers aren't even whispers, they're the voices of other people that God brings into your path. And that's how we knew that that it was time for us to move into, moving forward with an adoption. And the Lord is faithful, and how He answers our prayers doesn't happen, right? There's that Garth Brooks song, the Lord, sometimes I thank God for unanswered prayers. Right? Sometimes we're praying for things a certain way, but you know what? I just absolutely believe that in this next season for you, that the Lord is going to bring people that are going to give you definite direction, definite answers. And if you're questioning or wondering, because 25 years is a long time, Mama, but the Lord has not forgotten you. There's different names of God, and one of the names of God is El Roi, and it means God sees me. And it speaks to the woman at the well that the Lord has not forgotten you. And I remember for so many seasons that I would say, and I would cry out to El Roi. I said, El Roi, you have not forgotten me, and He has not forgotten you. So do not feel despised. Do not feel that you have been forgotten, because He has not forgotten you, and He will bring a refreshing into your life, regardless of what it is and how He makes you a mother. Because you know what? He may answer our prayers differently, right? If you had to ask me 15 years ago about bringing a daughter in from another woman's womb, I would have been close to it. But
I'm going to ask you one more question. It's a yes or no answer. Was it worth the wait?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Hands down.
I mean, she didn't have to answer. Her face is glowing.
Yes.
Oh, she missed. So Tara missed it. Have you gotten your daughter yet?
Oh,
okay, so that's a good question. And then my husband says, and she was the only woman He revealed Himself as the Messiah to.
Absolutely.
Oh, honey, you're
that's
so
good.
wise. You've been
That's
reading your Bible. Tara, this is your answer.
Yep. Here she is.
She's
Little Miss
beautiful. Cara Beth.
Mm-hmm.
She's so beautiful. And we're going so long on this that it's past her bedtime, you guys.
I know, and she's just
so we're
here.
going to get off of here. I promise you that if I'm ever in the same room with this woman again, you will see her as well. Okay? She's amazing. And I just, I feel really led Lord, I just thank you so much for this beautiful family.
Yes.
And would you guys pray with me too? I just feel so led to do this right now. We just thank you that this life is so important.
Yes.
And that all the lives that were lost were not lost because they are with
Jesus.
you. And we thank you that it was all worth it. That your faithfulness shows through this situation. I thank you so much that you gave her this desire and that she never quit. That she's such an example to other women of your faithfulness. And I just believe that you gave her this life in this situation because you knew that she would give you the glory. And I ask that because she's doing that and giving you the glory for her situation, and that I just know she's going to scream from the rooftops for the rest of her life of your faithfulness.
Yes.
And I just ask that you would bless her, like double, triple, 10 times bless her. Redeem any time that was lost.
Yes,
Redeem
Lord.
any physical things that were lost. Redeem bodies. Redeem her soul. Redeem everything that was lost. Redeem any finances that were lost.
Yes.
I thank you that nothing else would be lost, devoured, destroyed, or wasted in her life.
Yes, Lord.
And I just thank you so much that this would strengthen her marriage.
Yes.
That nothing else would be destroyed in her life, Lord. We just thank you, and I ask that you would bless her socks off for sharing her heart with all of these women and husbands that are watching right now. In Jesus' name, amen.
Yes, amen.
Okay, guys, thanks for praying with us. I'm sorry I missed those comments. This has been like an hour, so we're going to get off here, and I'm going to go check my eyes and my makeup.